This is another Love the Word, just meditations from my devotional to yours. And today, after reading several different parts of the Old Testament and New Testament, I was struck by this story of Jonathan and David. Super familiar story, really close friends. But what struck me this morning was Jonathan's commitment and promise and hope in God that led him to this deep friendship and loving David, as the word says, as his own soul. Loves David as he loved his own soul. But I just saw the difference in my own heart at times than what Jonathan is like here. And I just was thinking about the perspective that Jonathan has that sometimes I don't have, maybe that you wouldn't have. Listen to 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 30. This is the moment where it becomes clear that Saul is going to kill David and that Jonathan has to make a decision of whether or not he's going to save David or secure his future as the next king. This is a big moment. Listen to what it says in verse 30 of chapter 20 of Samuel 1. Saul says to Jonathan, 30 and 31, "For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die." There's this moment that King Saul, who's already losing his reign, he wants to hand it over to Jonathan, his son. Jonathan wants it to go to David, because David is the one that's been chosen and anointed by God to be the next king. But Saul says something really true. He says to Jonathan, "Jonathan, if you choose David, you are foregoing your future as king." That's incredible. Jonathan, if you choose God's way, you'll lose out. Isn't that the heart of every lie from the enemy? If you choose God, you will lose. You can't get as far ahead in life. You'll not have as much fun. You'll not get as much pleasure. You'll be stuck. If you choose God's way, you'll lose. Jonathan just blows me away because he loved David as his own soul. Where did that love come from? It's because he was not tempted to take for himself. He was utterly open-handed. God, you do what you're going to do, and if it means that David becomes king, I'm okay with that. Which allowed him to freely love David as he loved his own soul. He wasn't jealous of David. He didn't think David was moving ahead of him and somehow he had to get his. He wasn't envious. He loved God's will. And he chose God's will. And if God chose David, Jonathan chose David. It just struck me in my own heart this morning. It's how envious I am of others, of what others could get, what others have, whatever it is in that moment. It's so stupid. We play this comparison game, and we're not free. We don't freely love people because we're actually envious and jealous of them. We are jealous of their success, and so we're not free to love. And we often fight for our own. It's like, well, I better not surrender to what God is doing in this moment in my life because it'll mean I will lose on the future that is rightfully mine. But what God chooses, God chooses. And when we choose what God chooses, and we choose the Lord and His will above all things, all of a sudden we become utterly free to have or have not, utterly unattached to whatever future we might secure for ourselves, and we become totally free to love others as we love our own soul. It's powerful. It's amazing. It's a great meditation. Be encouraged by that. Think about that today. Are we envious of the success of others instead of free by holding to the will of God? Man, powerful. See you next time.